Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Board of Education meeting. Today is April 2nd, 2024. May I ask you to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First up on our order of business tonight, may I get a motion for approval of tonight's agenda? First, Henry, second, Megan. Any discussion or questions? Okay to vote? All in favor? 5-0. Next up, Superintendent's report. Mr. Poole.
Good evening, Mr. President, and welcome everyone. I'm going to turn off, as I usually do, the start of the superintendent's report to our two student ex officio trustees.
So for athletics, I'd like to congratulate senior Aaron Cahill, who has been named to Newsday's top 100 softball players. Recently, SWR 8th grader Gianna Bianco, sophomore Jillian Portuguese, and freshman Mia Stallone all received level 9 all-around scores and qualified for their places at the USAG Championships this April. Finally, SWR's unified bowling team of 37 members completed their inaugural season with a perfect 6-0 record on March 26th. As for upcoming events for the community to look out for, on Friday, April 5th, there will be a unified production performance at the high school, and our community relations class, Toiletry Drive, ends this Friday, where all materials will go to the Long Island Lending a Helping Hand located in Rocky Point. Later, there is another mini College Day fair being held Monday the 8th from 9:30 to 10:45 in the gym for any interested high schoolers seeking higher education. Also Monday, Suffolk County District Attorney's Office will be hosting an assembly entitled Choices and Consequences. Don't forget about this year's junior prom being held on Saturday, April 13th at Willow Creek Golf and Country Club from 6 to 10. Last day to buy tickets will be Friday the 5th. This week, SWR SEPTA is holding an Autism Awareness Spirit Week, and tomorrow is What's Your Passion Wednesday, where people are asked to dress showing something you love, whether it be a color, video game, or show. Thursday is Write It Up Blue, where people can take a picture of themselves holding up a sign with what you want people to know about autism using a blue marker or blue paper. Lastly is Sensory Friendly Friday, where people are asked to wear their most comfortable clothing or bring in any comfort item. For more information, feel free to check out March 28th's post on Student Square.
Additionally, rehearsals have begun for this year's student production, Sweet Surrender. The show will be directed by our seniors Emily Murray and Tori Santorino, and it opens May 2nd. Our school district has been ranked among the National Association for Music Merchants Foundation's best communities for music education in America for the 5th year in a row. This honor acknowledges schools and districts across the country for their dedication to music education as part of the core curriculum. Thank you to the administration, Board of Education, and community for their unending support for the music performances here. Finally, the Electrify Your Band concert will be April 10th at 7 p.m. This performance is a part of the Electrify Your Symphony program created by electric violinist and music education advocate Mark Wood. His team of artist mentors work with orchestra, choir, and band students all across the country to put on rock concerts at their schools, with ticket sales benefiting the participating music departments. All are encouraged to attend.
Excellent, and well done. I actually
Thanks,
have no
Emily.
report because you took everything. No, I'm just kidding. I just want to reiterate congratulations to the school community, to the music department, to our music educators, to our administrators. Being recognized as a best community for music education for the 5th year in a row isn't by chance. It's about the dedication of everyone here to the arts, including music. And I'm very excited about Electrify Your Band next week. And one other thing to put on the new calendar is on May 22nd, we tentatively, or no, it's more than tentatively, we have a concert set for a district-wide performance, 400 students, in commemoration of our 50th anniversary.
Wow.
We'll be performing a special piece composed for the 50th anniversary of the school district. That's coming up on May 20,
That sounds terrific.
22nd. Just a few notes from around the district. Over at the middle school, Middle school technology teacher, Mr. Driscoll, brought 17 students to the annual Brookhaven National Laboratory Maglev competition earlier in March. Congratulations to students Owen Anderson, who received second place in the appearance category for scale model, Jordan Lusak, who received first place in the speed category for wind power, Jonan Miraglio, who received first place in the speed category for gravity, and Aylin Turksemets, who received first place in the appearance category for futuristic. So a lot of first places for our young scientists over at the middle school. And I can't believe it's that time of the year already. 8th graders will be heading towards Washington, D.C. this Thursday and Friday. So exciting trip coming up. At Wading River, our ex officio trustees mentioned Autism Awareness Week. This week, children at Wading River will join in on a special Autism Awareness Fair during phys ed classes this week, where they'll have an opportunity to learn more about autism in an immersive experience. The Wading River PTA will be hosting a blood drive this Thursday, April 4th, from 3:30 to 7:30. Over at Miller Avenue, the annual Miller Avenue School Science Fair will be held on Wednesday, April 10th. Really excited to see the projects that our young students come up with. And they are looking forward to the Sweetbriar Nature Center coming to Miller Avenue to talk with our second grade students and show them the animals that they have later on this month as well. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole, and thank you, Ally and Emily, for those updates. Appreciate it. You know, you did mention it is National Autism Awareness Day today, Mr. Poole, so
Yes.
I did want to throw a shout out to our educators, our teachers and staff, all the people in our special education department. Very proud of our district for all the services and programs that we offer. So just wanted to acknowledge that as well. I wanted to see if there was an opportunity. You have anything you want to? No, there was
I
nothing
just
that
say,
you wanted to add.
I'm remiss I didn't mention a big thank you to SEPTA,
Yep,
Special
absolutely.
Education Parent Teacher Association. Wonderful donations, advocacy, and for putting together the activities and events in conjunction with administration for the week. So it'd be a great week to celebrate autism.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Poole. Any opportunity for board members? Yeah, please. Okay. Any statements from residents on agenda items tonight? No. Okay, thank you. Tonight, we have a treat. We have our student and staff, student opportunities tonight with our middle school student performance. Very excited to hear from them. Mr. Vance, I'll call you up. Thanks.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to showcase some of our outstanding band members here, and as well as our student council, who will be doing a presentation
Oh, terrific.
a little bit later on some of the happenings at the middle school. So we appreciate the opportunity, and I'd just like to invite up Mr. Finnerty, the band director, to introduce his students.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having the middle school students here to play for you. They are excited to do so. The 4 students who will be playing for you are members of the 8th grade saxophone quartet at the middle school. 2 alto saxophones, Kai Hidaka and Gabby Smith. On tenor saxophone, William Lister. And on baritone saxophone, Israel Salgado. They're going to be playing a slower tune for you guys, a more lyrical piece, especially since we have Electrify Your Band next week. So we'll get plenty of loud and rock and roll then. So I thought I'd change it up. So I hope you enjoy their performance.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your musical talents with us tonight. That was terrific. Really great. Yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate you guys doing that. Okay, continuing forward with our meeting, we have our reports and reviews section up. So Mr. Van, I'll call you back up. Looking forward to our middle school student council update. Thank you.
Yeah, once again, just thank you for having us. We truly appreciate and the opportunity for some of our students to highlight some of the exciting things that are happening over at the middle school. So at this point, I would like to invite up Ms. Caitlin O'Connell, who's the advisor to our student council.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's also been a pleasure to work with our student council this year. We have a very passionate group of students who are dedicated to making the middle school a great place to learn and to grow. So today I have 3 members with me, Julia Bapst, Ruby Lieber, and Cassie Dancero. They will be sharing some of the activities we've done since this fall. So.
Each October, Prodell Middle School recognizes Unity Day to spread kindness and express that no one should ever experience bullying. Sadly, about 1 in 5 students ages 12 to 18 has been bullied during the school year. On Unity Day, students and staff wore orange to spread a message of kindness. Additionally, members of the student council decorated post-its with words of encouragement and kindness. These post-its were placed on each student's locker. When the kids came in to school on Unity Day, they received a kind word of encouragement to help them through the day. This was a very nice way to show everyone that there is no place for bullying and to spread more kindness. For the Halloween dance, in October, the student council organized and hosted the Prodell Middle School Halloween dance. After school, student council members came together to decorate the gym and cafeteria. We decorated the space with creepy posters, string lights, caution tape, and tombstones. It was really fun to work with all the members of student council to put this dance together. During the dance, students enjoyed dance competitions and costume contests. Most of the student council members attended the dance and cleaned up after. Everyone enjoyed the dance and loved the theme decorations. We are looking forward to doing this annual tradition every year.
Hello, I'm Julia Bapst, and I'm Student Council President of Prodell Middle School. In November, Student Council recognized Diabetes Awareness Month. We researched facts about diabetes and shared them with the students during morning announcements. These facts informed the students about diabetes and the effects it has on people. This cause is particularly important to me because a good friend of mine was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes during our lacrosse season. Watching her struggle with this diagnosis helped me realize how this could impact someone's life. Bringing awareness to causes such as this helps our students realize that everyone has their own struggles and to be grateful for their own health. Next, I'd like to talk about the 50th anniversary time capsule. This year marks the 50 years of Shoreham-Wading River School District. Student Council celebrated this district's 50th anniversary by creating the Prodell Middle School time capsule. We gathered input from the entire Prodell community to capture everyday life and the interests of Prodell Middle School students. Our time capsule included 2022-2023 school yearbooks, photo albums, student artwork, the Contemplations literary magazine, a student agenda, typical school supplies, letters to the future, and a binder with relevant information about Prodell Middle School. Our students also contributed to a poetry contest in honor of the 50th anniversary, and our classmate Adeline Casper was the winner of the poetry contest. We are optimistic to be here in 50 years when the time capsule is unveiled at the 100th anniversary.
Throughout the year, we have different spirit weeks to celebrate the holidays and encourage school spirit. Before winter break, Student Council organized a spirit week which included wearing ugly holiday sweaters, holiday accessories, and pajamas. In February, we promoted the district-wide Spirit Week for the 50th anniversary of our school district. During this week, students and staff wore clothing to represent the popular fashions from over the past 50 years. Each Spirit Week includes wearing school merch to celebrate school pride and celebrate the unique style of other students. Overall, this year has been very successful for Student Council, and we hope to continue these fun traditions. We will continue to represent the interests of our student body and to bring the middle school closer together.
Well, thank you for that update. There are so many terrific things that you mentioned and brought up. Thank you for the time and dedication that you have to yourselves and your fellow students. It's amazing. Thank you for your guidance with the program. Anyone have any questions about that? Okay.
Great job speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. You sure did. And the awareness and issues, the things that you brought up, really amazing. So,
You know, it's so meaningful when positive change comes from peers, the people in your building. So, you know, educators can put in a ton of effort, but when it comes from peers, it is so much more meaningful to the students that you go to school with. So thank you for your effort.
absolutely. You'll be very proud of yourselves. Thank you all for that. Okay, going to continue forward. Next up, Mr. Curie. Yep, thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. We have our 2024-2025 budget presentation by Mr. Glenn Curie. Thanks, Glenn.
It's gotta be me. I am.
He clears the room. The budget clears the room.
It's gotta
Why
be-
is it
it's
the
gotta
budget
be me.
clears the
I'm
room?
starting to get the
Why
feeling.
is that?
Ernesto, thank you for staying. You seem to be at all of the budget meetings. Thank you.
Make them stay.
I do. Tonight is our fourth budget development meeting. Traditionally, April 2nd, April 1st, New York State would have adopted their state budget. So when we cover the revenue section tonight, there'll be some gaps.
Yep.
Again, when you see the students tonight, when you go to the SRO, when you go to any student event, when you walk down the hallways, you just see the budget dollars constantly directly at work for the students. No matter what you see inside the district, you always see the budget dollars spent on amazing opportunities for kids. The pictures, they always show them also, but then when you get to see them perform, when you get to hear them speak, to Mr. Lewis's comment earlier, the three students spoke better than I'm going to speak tonight, I'm sure. 24-25 state aid update. Governor Kathy Hochul and the state legislature have missed the April 1st deadline to adopt the state budget. On March 27th, Governor Kathy Hochul sent a bill that was passed by the state legislature to keep the government running through April 4th. So we're still in limbo for the final state aid numbers. Tax levy history, the last 7 years, 1.30% average increase. Important to note, in those 7 years, we have not levied completely to our available limit by $304,820. So that means that our levy limit base will forever be lower than what it could have been by that $304,820. Budget history, 2.24% year-to-year average. This year we are reflecting a 4% budget-to-budget increase, but as you'll see, without our one-time expenditure in there, we're really about a 2.02% increase, so we are below our 7-year average. 24-25 proposed budget highlights: maintains all programs, maintains current class size, includes a transfer to capital fund budget line, includes the use of prior state aid as a revenue, includes additional clubs, includes funding to replace 50 to 60 interactive smart boards, reflects reductions of contingent funds, and does not include funding to cover the shortfall in UPK funding that has been covered by grants in past years. Photo that I had selected was the High School Triumph Music Honor Society, the 7th Annual Sweets and Treats Recital. I had briefly visited that event and just saw, again, an amazing number of students, both performing as well as watching, for a phenomenal cause. So it just continues to show why there's just so much passion here and so much emotion and so much positivity that I've tried to capture pictures to just really show what separates when you just look at a picture from our district compared to others.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm glad you keep changing the pictures. It keeps it more interesting for all of us, just so you know.
It
Mr.
does.
Chair.
Challenging at times to actually pick that right picture.
You're doing good.
You know, I'm trying to
doing
pick
good.
that right picture that
noticed.
really just like moves the business guy. You know, it does not move. The educators are always moved.
They're good moments. They're good.
You know, I
they're good.
noticed in the other photos you had the music trip to Hamilton. I think you had that in there this past week.
I think on the
Not
first
this
slide.
past
The
week.
On the
first one,
first
like
slide.
the
Yes, yes,
compilation,
yes.
the compilation
Which was,
slide.
you mentioned the experiences. My daughter had an amazing time. It was just a great, the workshop, the show, the whole trip was amazing. So those experiences is really what, I think it's why we're all here.
Yeah.
Make
Correct.
sure those are,
And,
keep
that's
going.
such a key point to not forget that when you look at a budget, yes, all school budgets are tied to a person's property taxes, a business property taxes. But without really seeing what those dollars are buying and how frugal we are actually spending those dollars with a 1.30% 7-year average tax levy increase, with an increase greater than that for our expenditure increase, we're doing so much, and we are doing it in a responsible fashion to the Shoreham-Wading River community. And that's what I try to, that's the real thing that I'm trying to convey to Mr. Rossini and those in the audience. Budget highlights. There are 7 new elementary clubs, 2 new middle school clubs. It is important to note that back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the elementary clubs were abolished throughout the district, where the high school clubs, a lot of them remain funded. So we are not adding new clubs at the high school because there's already a very large amount of clubs. We are really restoring clubs that were once part of the DNA here in Shoreham. Transfer to capital fund. Funding is to make electrical infrastructure replacements and upgrades. These were priority items listed in the district's building condition survey. Construction of 2 additional faculty restrooms at the Miller Avenue School. New high school courses, digital literacy, pre-advanced placement, world history and geography, writing lab and writing center, and a cybersecurity elective. Interactive smart boards. There are approximately 120 smart boards across all 4 buildings. We are looking to replace a lot of them that are past their useful life and or are actually experiencing technical challenges. To set up a smart board in some of our classrooms, and it takes a number of minutes to calibrate it, it just doesn't start that student lesson off for that teacher on that perfect foot. We want to be able to turn it on, it's there, it's functioning, it's an understood thing. We don't want to build a level of, how come Mr. Arcuri's classroom has that smartboard that constantly needs calibration, where Mrs. Smith's class is perfect? We just have to do our replacement process in order to keep the district at the standard that we are looking to keep it. So we had redirected contingent funds that were inside the budget to the equipment lines in order to make these purchases. The plan is to replace 50 to 60 of them. There could be a little bit more, depending upon the price that Mr. Esposito and his team are able to achieve. The goal is to have them ready in place by the start of school. The understanding would be April 16th, the Board of Education adopts this budget without taking the Smart Board funding out. And then Mr. Esposito should start getting his process so that hopefully the voters support the budget on May 21st. He could, May 22nd, go out, start that process so that they're here. So we really have that ball moving. Hopefully we keep this funding line in the 25-26 budget in order to do either hopefully the remaining balance. However, if there are pricing increases, then maybe we do have to finish whatever we didn't finish inside the 26-27 year. Maintenance projects, additional cameras district-wide. This was another priority one item on the district's building condition survey. We have some outdated cameras. We have some areas that we would like to add cameras. So we are doing a project, half the district's maintenance budget is related to replacement or installing new security cameras. In addition, install a walkway along the middle school track, as well as funding for kindergarten play set at Miller Avenue, library furniture at Wading River, innovative classroom furniture in the middle school, robotics equipment at the high school, and a Yamaha upright piano for the high school.
Mr. Carey, I just would like Mr. Meinzer to clarify one thing. On the high school courses, I just wanted the folks at home to know, the writing lab and writing center, I think that's a great addition. Could you maybe just explain who takes advantage of that? How is it going to be offered, just for people at home who might be watching? Thanks, Helen.
Sure, thanks. So the writing lab is actually a scheduled class that will be offered to students that are identified who have demonstrated gaps in their writing, who would benefit from the opportunity to meet every other day as part of their schedule with a teacher in a small group setting to be able to review and target into those areas where they've demonstrated gaps. The writing center would be offered as an open opportunity during lunch periods every other day, where students would be able to come as needed and be able to interact with an English teacher who would be available to them in the lab for them to sign up for a 20-minute block where they can get one-on-one support or two-on-one support for helping them.
Thank you, Helen. I think those are two great opportunities that we're going to add this coming year if the budget obviously goes forward. But just wanted you to explain that because I think those are terrific skills for our students, both if it's optional or not optional, right? And we have both support services. So thank you for that, Alan.
Thank you.
Just a question on the smart boards. Will the board be voting on disposal of the old ones, or is that part of the cost of the replacement, the removal of them?
No, at the time when the 50 to 60, 70 locations are determined that we're going to be taking them out, each particular smart board has a fixed asset tag attached to it. So as part of a declaration of obsolete items resolution, that will come to you. Most likely, I don't anticipate that coming to you until sometime in August or September. Traditionally, we bring those resolutions forward once every quarter. However, due to the size and space needed to store these, we would probably, once we identify them, get the fixed asset tag from them, and then quickly try to get them on probably, I would estimate, the August agenda, the earliest.
Is there a salvage value for them? Or?
No, there's actually just a scrap. And the good news is the way Mr. Esposito has it, please don't ask me how, but he has a vendor that basically takes our obsolete equipment, and we don't pay anything, and it gets recycled in a green fashion that we get our certificate for. So he has a system that he's done, and he's done a great job with it. As I mentioned earlier, percent increase, 4% year over year, $3,389,104 increase. However, it's very important to note, without the transfer to capital fund budget line, which is $1,676,920 to do the priority items in the BCS related to electrical panels and electrical infrastructure, as well as adding 2 additional adult bathrooms at Miller Avenue. That project, that transfer to capital line, has a compensating or corresponding offset on the revenue budget related to prior year state aid revenue. Revenue that the district won on a prior year state aid claim that can be used to support the district's general budget and any items within the general fund budget. This item is in the general fund budget. So if we didn't have the transfer to capital fund line in the budget, we would be looking at a year-to-year increase of 2.02%. We would also not need that prior year state aid revenue. So it's just important to note that 24-25's budget is, again, coming in under the 7-year average that we've had. Summary of expenditures. Again, a slide we have tried to create a consistent way to look back at the last 12 years now, since this slide has been part of the budget presentations. So it's easy enough by category to see where is the growth, where is the allocation, what % of each category makes up the total expenditure budget. You could find any details of each category at previous budget presentations that can be found on the district's website. Proposed budget summary in 3-part form. As a controller's requirement, every school district has to present the budget in a three-component form: administrative, capital, and program. We are showing a 5.42% increase in the administrative component. We're showing a 13.43% increase. However, only $1,454,862 in capital. The capital component is where the transfer to capital fund line is. If we didn't have that $1,676,000 expense, we would be showing a decrease within the capital component. Again, just an important part to note, even though that reflects an increase, that's being fully funded by a one-shot revenue from prior year state aid. And as far as program goes, we are reflecting a 2.10% increase. You will see the 3-part budget. It's part of the 6-day notice. It's part of the New York State property tax, the New York State property tax report card. That, again, is a required reporting item that will be on the board agenda for consideration at the April 16th meeting. That has to be submitted to the state and approved by the Board of Education the same time the Board of Education adopts the 24-25 budget. Contingent budget facts, again, another required item, part of the 6-day notice and part of the property tax report card. The contingent budget adopted by the Board of Education would always be less than the proposed budget. For the district to be considered tax levy limit compliant, the 24-25 tax levy would be equal to the 23-24 tax levy. It could be equal to and even less than if there was a condition that it was actually lower. But it cannot be more than the 23-24 tax levy. Under a contingent budget, all organizations, including not-for-profit, so that means booster clubs, PTAs, PTOs, would all have to pay to use district facilities, not just inside building facilities as well as fields. The contingent budget must adhere to the administrative cap requirement. What that's saying is you do a comparison on 22-23 actual expenditures for program. The increase in 22-23 expenditures as a percentage, you cannot increase the administrative component for the following year by an amount greater. So that's just making sure that what that calculation's for is you can't penalize the kids under a contingent budget. That's why that administrative cap requirement's there. You just can't make all your reductions and affect students. You must make sure they get at the minimum the same expenditure value that was in 22-23's budget. For us, required reductions, equipment funding must be removed from the budget. Transfer to capital funding must be removed from the budget. The Board of Education must exercise its best judgment in determining what the minimum expenditures shall be within limitations imposed by the administrative and contingent budget caps. As of today, the 24-25 contingent budget would be $85,056,717. The required reduction in equipment, $970,583. If you look at the same slide from last year's budget, 23-24, that number's lower in equipment because this year we have a large equipment amount related to smartboard replacement. The required contingent budget reduction for transfer to capital, $1,676,920. Reductions needed to meet the administrative cap requirements are approximately $320,650. Additional reductions needed to balance to the revenue budget would be $158,593. Traditionally, this is as far as we go with the contingent budget. We don't present more detail because the district's philosophy to date has been, if the unforeseen circumstance took place where the voters did not support the May 21st budget, we would strongly urge to go out for a second vote. With that second vote, for the vote in June, at that vote, we would really show a contingent budget where we have everything listed. What would be the effect on administrative? That's when you really go into detail. Historically, for this district, we have taken a very, I'm going to say, supportive, proactive approach, not a threatening approach, as some districts take. They spend more time in the contingent budget details than they do on the budget details. Since I've been here since 2010, that's not an approach that Shoreham-Wading River has used as a tactic. It's been show the minimum. This is the minimum information that needs to be presented. That's all that we do. Revenue budget overview. As I mentioned before, we don't have adopted state aid numbers yet. To date, we've been using the state aid released on January 16th, 2024 for Shoreham. It's been $16,886,957. That's the amount that's been presented to date. The planned budget adoption for Shoreham is April 16th. Just like last year, if the governor, they did not adopt the budget, their state budget, before school districts across the state were required to adopt their budget, what would Shoreham do? We would use the numbers that were given to us, on January 16th, 2024. If the state aid numbers at that time come in lower than the state aid numbers that we have currently been using, we would have to make that deficit up. Not by changing the expenditure budget, but by either applying more appropriated fund balance, more use of reserves. We would have to do something to fill that budget because you can't increase the taxes. You can't change your expenditure budget. We have to find one of our revenue sources to increase. If we were to get more funding, the district has the option of reducing unappropriated fund balance, reducing use of reserves, reducing the tax levy. State aid breakdown. As you can see, our foundation aid was not reduced for this school year. We did not receive our CPI increase as was originally promised in 23-24. However, most important is we did not see a decrease. High cost aid has increased. Private excess cost aid slightly increased. BOCE's aid has increased. Hardware and technology, small decrease in software, library, textbook. Transportation aid, high tax aid, no change, and building aid, a slight decrease. Looking at the categories, BOCE's aid, hardware, technology, software, transportation, those are expense-driven aids. What you expensed in your 23-24 year, when you file your district school tax return called an ST3, they come up with the percentage that we are allotted to receive. So you do get a percentage of what you spend back. As far as high cost excess cost aid and private excess cost aid, those are directly tied to special education costs. They're not 1 year behind. Sometimes they're 2 or 3 years catch up. However, it's important to note we do get a return of a portion of our dollars spent. When we do get the adopted state aid numbers, this slide will be revised to actually reflect the adopted state aid numbers. Any questions on state aid? Pilot and other local revenue, pilot payments have a slight increase based on the contractual percentage outlined in each pilot agreement. Adult education tuition directly tied dollar for dollar to the adult education expenditure budget. Community programs, day school, community programs, again, dollar to dollar tieback. How much did we budget in community programs to expense is how much we are budgeting to receive, because community programs is supposed to be a net zero operation to the taxpayer. Day school tuition, we've increased this slightly to align with what students do we know as of today that sending districts that send to our special education program have already said, listen, we're going to be sending our students back to your district. You see, when we do actual revenue at the end of the school year, that number is traditionally higher. Number could be as high as $550,000 in revenue. At the time we are developing the budget, we don't have signed contracts. We have verbal agreements for some and no verbal agreements for others, so we only list on this as a revenue source what are the verbal agreements that we're pretty confident that we're going to receive. Interest and earnings, as interest rates have fluctuated, we've chose to keep the interest rates as conservative as possible, $70,000. Rentals and use of facilities, $25,000. Miscellaneous, $25,000. And there's a new student fee revenue. If you remember, back on March 12th, presented district-wide expenses. Included district-wide expenses was the category for field trips. Field trips reflected an increase. Due to the controller's requirement to now have the district budget for chaperone costs that will eventually be paid by the chaperone themselves, we had to increase the budget. So traditionally, when someone would go on the Washington, D.C. trip, the parent or guardian was paying their way, paying, let's just say, the $125, the check would come in, we would increase the school budget, and then generate the purchase order to make that payment for $125. The comptroller is saying, we don't have the authority to increase the school budget. It's not a donation, it is an expense. If someone donated something to the district, you are allowed to adjust the budget. The Board of Education accepts a resolution. That is the action to increase the budget. That $125, that has to come into this district to create a purchase order for that guardian parent to go on the Washington, D.C. trip. Now we needed to record an expenditure. So we have an expenditure in the budget, $158,768 related to parent chaperone related costs to attend a field trip. Now we have a revenue line in the revenue budget.
That's for fees in all the schools and all the trips, not just one specific trip.
It is fees related traditionally to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. There really aren't parent share. To date, I have not received or heard we take checks for parent and guardians to attend any other trip through the district. Maybe if they're going to a zoo, they're paying their own way. But from the analysis that the auditors have done looking back at the last 3 years, they pointed out these two trips specifically.
So the New York City trip, where they go see a play, are they paying tickets separately?
That represents the value of the cost that the district cannot
Yes.
incur.
Correct.
So for a New York City Broadway show, in that particular model, the district would pay for the educational component, probably the meeting with the actor off stage, but the students would pay for the entertainment.
So all that says, all those field trips are included in that number?
Everything's in that. Those are all the
Not
fees
just
that
those
we're
two,
not
okay.
legally able to pay for.
Any questions on pilot and other local revenue section? District reserves, again, this same exact slide was presented in our first budget meeting, but since we are applying reserves to the 24-25 budget, we always like to loop back through it again to show what the balances were June 30th, 2023, as well as what the planned use of the reserves will be for 24-25. Tax levy limit calculation, we are not looking to pierce. We're looking for a 50% plus one. We will be revising building aid if, under the adopted state budget, the building aid number changes. At this time, we have the exclusion for employee retirement. It's the first time since 2012 that we've had the ability to have a small increase inside of our tax levy related to the ERS value. Other than that, everything else is accounted for, all the pilot payments, the debt service payments. The only thing related to the tax levy limit calculation is building aid could change, and our levy limit's 2.5224%. Any questions on a tax levy? Again, total revenue budget, that balances to the expenditure budget. Tax levy, state aid, it could change once the adopted budget's in place, other local revenue. There's appropriated fund balance that reflects a slight decrease. Use of tax reduction reserve, almost dollar for dollar to the transfer to capital fund line. Employee retirement system, same 1 million as the current year. No use of teachers' retirement system reserve. Unemployment reserve, same amount as the previous year. Workers' compensation reserve, same amount as the previous year. And as previously mentioned, we're using funds from the debt service fund, interest that was accumulated when we were doing the bond work, and we are beginning to apply 1/8 of the remaining dollars in the debt service fund to the revenue budget. Any questions on the revenue budget in total? Again, same exact slide that you've seen in the past budget development meetings. 4% increase on the expenditure side, 4% increase on the revenue side. Not looking to pierce, not looking to do anything different other than simple majority vote. And when the final state aid numbers come, as I previously mentioned, if we get less state aid than the 1,688,697, we would have to increase something in the use of reserves and fund balance section. If we get more state aid, we could reduce the tax levy or reduce any of the reserves and fund balance category. We don't set the tax levy until October. So if the budget is adopted on April 16th, meaning Shoreham's budget's adopted April 16th, the revenue budget related to the tax levy does not have to change until October. Any questions on the budget?
If it was to come out April 20th.
April 20th, we have 16th is a Tuesday, 17th, 18th, 19th is Friday. Our last day to adopt, I believe, is the 19th.
I would have to double check.
I believe it's the Friday of that week.
We can't amend the adoption.
The only way that you would want to amend it is if you want to change the expenditure value. The Board of Education on April 16th takes action on a resolution related to Proposition 1, which is just the top line, the expenditure budget. The Board of Education takes action to present that number to the voters. The revenue budget, there's no action taken by the voters. The Board of Education determines the revenue budget. You would tell us what you wish to do. If it's using money between reserves and fund balance, as the note on the bottom says, the allocation between fund balance and reserves can change. That is an at-will decision by the Board of Education. There's no board action needed. Your board action is you're presenting a budget that shows expenditure budgets balanced with the revenue budget. The only way that you would want to take revised action from April 16th is if you wanted to change the expenditure budget. You received more state aid.
That's what I'm hoping.
By X dollars, then yes, you do have the ability at that point to.
Instead of waiting for Still have to wait.
No, it's different. If you're asking to increase the expenditure budget, you need to increase the expenditure budget before, I think it's I want to say, Mike, I really believe it's April 23rd. No, April 19th, I think it's that Friday. It could be the latest that Monday. It's in my binder, the actual adoption date. Because the Board of Education has to set the expenditure budget in order for the voters to vote on the expenditure budget for May 21st. If you're asking me, do you need to have another meeting if you want to change the tax levy? The answer is no. We could publicly present that.
Okay, that's what I
So
was
on, I understand. So on April 20th, after we've adopted our expenditure budget, if the decision's made, we get more state aid than the
Right.
$16,886, every budget presentation after that, I will be revising the $16,886 to what the correct number is, and we will be presenting some form of a revised budget,
Gotcha.
whether it's a tax levy, whether it's a reduction of appropriated fund balance and/or reserves. Any budget presentation would be reflective of what the adopted state aid is. Again, important budget development dates: April 16th, budget adoption; 24-25, budget presentation dates; April 17th, we're at Shoreham Civic Association meeting; April 25th, Wading River Civic Association meeting; May 7th is the budget hearing; May 9th, PTA council meeting; budget vote May 21st, 2024, high school main gymnasium. Important to note, all the budget presentations to date are on the district's website under the Parent Guardian Resources section. You choose budget, and the last 3 meetings are there. Sometime tomorrow, tonight's presentation will be set on the district's website. In addition, there's plenty of other important business-related documents that are on the district's website: external audit reports, internal audit reports, high school funding transparency forms, plenty of information if anyone has any questions related to the district's finances. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arcuri.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we've got our votes and resolutions. Approval of our draft March 26, 2024, regular public meeting minutes. May I get a motion? Henry, second Megan. Any discussion or questions? Okay to vote? All in favor? 5-0. Next up will be personnel. We have an in-service compensation, course compensation. May I get a motion? Megan, second Mike. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 5-0. Any communication, Stephanie?
No.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any additional comments from residents? No? Okay.
Only Mr. Rosini if he wants to speak.
Mr. Rosini, would you like to add anything tonight?
He's
Okay, great. Okay, checking. May I get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Henry, second Megan. All in favor? 5-0. Good night, everyone.